Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 3 of CET training. We're going to wait about 2 more minutes just to let everybody get logged into Zoom here, and then we will get going for the day. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So today we are going to be talking about part tagging. We will look at calculations. We're going to dig into that main article view, and then we're going to look at how we can set up new article views. Then we're going to take a look at our paper view. And then I'm going to show you some things in the photo lab. And then we're going to wrap it up with print reports. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go into CET. I think for today, the easiest thing to do is going to be to start a new drawing. I know we've been working on that one exercise drawing. I did have to do a clean start because I had that weirdness happen, and things have been behaving okay since then. But I think I'm going to go ahead and start a new drawing here. So I'm going to go up to the top and click on this new drawing button. Now you can also open a new drawing button or new drawing by going to your file dropdown and then clicking new. Either of those will work. I can copy and paste from the other drawing into this drawing if I needed to, but we'll just do just a quick review. I'm going to leave all of my pre-configurator and everything how it is. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of racking into my drawing. I'll go ahead and add 2 systems in here. So that way we can look at how part tagging is going to play into things that you are specifying within CET. So again, I'm going to pretend like I've already done all of my pre-configuration and all of that. It looks like CET is uh, having a little bit of a hiccup for me here. Okay, there we go. All right. Now I'm going to click this Insert Rack System, and we'll go ahead and just add a couple systems into the drawing. Oh, we've got a blue today. Okay, there we go. So we've got a couple different systems here. I'll zoom out so that way we can see them. Now I did do 2 systems. I'm going to tag these separately so we can kind of see what is happening when we use our part tagging tool. I'll show you a couple cool things that we can do with that. But for right now, we're going to start with these 2 systems. Okay, so when you want to use part tagging is a really nice feature that's available for you. And what it does is it allows you to separate things in your drawing for different purposes. So it can be for figuring out different quotes for different areas. It could be maybe for phases. So maybe you're going to be delivering things in different phases or installing them in different phases. It could be to quickly see how much price differences between one type of system and another. Lots of different ways that you can use part tagging, and you can get really creative with part tagging as well. Again, very robust program, and there are lots of ways to accomplish things. So this is another tool in your tool belt, okay? So when we go up to the tools drop down, the first option here is part tagging. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and left click on part tagging, and that's going to open up my part tagging dialog window. Now, you may have some defaults already in here when you start your part tagging. What we're looking for is a category name and then some tag names. You're going to have categories and tags. The categories are going to have these blue binders next to them, and the tags are going to have this little tag icon. Now, you may have nothing in here. I'm going to go ahead and delete these all out. And that is okay. Maybe you have nothing here to start with. That is totally all right, depending on what kind of extensions you have downloaded, and what types of things you have going on in CET. You may have some things that come in automatically. If not, that is okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this first category. And for this first category, let's go ahead and say that we want to set up our part tagging by phase. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to change the label down here. Down at the bottom, we can add some information. So I'm going to call this phases. Okay, so now this category is going to contain our tagging for our phases. If I wanted to give more of a description, I could, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it. And with this category selected, I'm going to select this new tag. So this will add a new tag within this category. So for this first tag, I'm going to call this phase 1. And now if I click this phase 1 and click new tag, it will actually copy that verbiage and give you the next numerical in the sequence. So right now I've got phase 1, and then I click new tag and it gave me phase 2. I can continue to click new tag and it will give me all of those in a row. It works for anything with a number at the end. So if it was, area 1, 2, 3, 4, down here I've got an example of office 1, 2, 3, 4. But any of those as a quick time saver, you can click that new tag on something that ends in a numeral, and it will continue that numerical sequence for you. So we've got phase 1 and phase 2. Now, these will have a default color. It is a good idea to make them different than one another, and you'll see why in just a moment here. When we are selecting these different categories and these different tags, we're going to be able to see them highlighted here in our drawing. And by having different colors assigned, we're going to be able to quickly have that visual cue in our drawing to let us know which one is applied where. All right, so let's go ahead and section out some areas. So for phase 1, I'm going to use this tagging rectangle. Then I'm going to left click to anchor it. And then I'm going to go away from that initial point just to make sure that I'm surrounding this entire section here. I'm going to left click again, and now I can move in an upward or downward fashion to surround whatever I want to include in this phase 1 area. So left clicking one more time will complete that part tag. And now in my part tag dialog, I can see I have one area. I can also see that everything is highlighted in that green color. All right, let's go ahead and do the next one. So phase 2. I'm going to do this tagging rectangle again. There are other ways to apply part tagging. We can create a custom shape, which will work like a connect the dots tool. So you'll just left click around the area that you want to include in that. But for the most part, this tagging rectangle will be able to surround whatever you need to surround. You can also create multiple areas. Okay, so right now I've got one area for my phase 2. I can see that it's all highlighted in that blue color. If I wanted to create multiple areas, I could just continue to create those areas to surround whatever I needed to surround for that same phase 2 tag. Now, because I don't need these extras, I'm going to go ahead and select them by selecting the outline and then pressing delete. So now when I toggle between these, I can see them being selected in both my 2D and my 3D view. You can see them being highlighted here. Again, that's that quick visual cue. Okay, so now I've got part tags for phase one and phase two. Let's say that we wanted to be able to quote maybe an individual bay. Okay, so I'm going to go into my tag two. I'm going to say bay here. So this is going to be a bay category, and I'm going to create a new tag, and we'll say that this is going to be A1. There we go. And I'm going to grab my tagging rectangle, and I'll go ahead and just surround whatever I want to have included in that particular part tag. Again, I'm going to give it a different color just so it's easy to quickly distinguish as I am maneuvering through my different part tags. Okay, so there is a single bay. Now we might also want to divide it up in other ways. So for this last category, let's go ahead and say, let's do, mm, we'll just do partial for this one. But again, this is, oh, let's name the category, not the tag. This is just a hypothetical here. And like I said, depending on your actual needs, you can get really creative for this. Um, let's go ahead and just do a portion of a system here. And we will do one more as well. We're going to name this lower half. And I'm going to rename this partial system. Um, we will call this the eastern. So we've got our lower half. Oh my goodness, guys. I haven't had my coffee yet. Eastern. There we go. Okay. Now we've got our category name. We're going to do this whole system and we're going to do it in portions. Okay. So we've got our lower half and now we will do our upper half. So however you want to be able to divide this up, you can set up different categories and different part tags for all of those different reasons. Okay, let's go ahead and add this into our upper half. And I'm going to give these different colors as well. Go ahead and do like an orange and a yellow. There we go. Okay. All right, so now we are all set here. Now, again, we can get really creative with this. If we wanted to do, instead of just a single system, maybe we wanted to do both systems, we could stretch it out all the way over. These do have stretch nodes on them, so they are easy to kind of manipulate. And whatever is actually included in that particular area is what's going to be included in those part tags. So you'll see if I go ahead and stretch it out to include these other rows, they're going to be highlighted and added in. Now, it's important to note with part tagging that things can only exist in one tag per category. So, for example, the single bay is included in both my single bay category, it's included in my lower half for my partial system category, and it's also included in my phase two category, right? I cannot have a single bay that is also included in one of these other categories. It can only exist in one tag per category. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit tricky here. I did mention downloading the Essential Palette Racking extension yesterday for some accessory items. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of those accessory items here. So that's the mesh decking and the chipboard. These are all going to be included now in calculation. So if I wanted to maybe add some chipboard to my system, I'm going to go ahead and say add this to the system. Here we go. So now this system has chipboard and this one does not. If I have some kind of accessories, I can actually come in and I can even set up a category for those particular accessories. So let's say that I wanted to be able to quote my accessories separately. So maybe you wanted to be able to show what the system would cost for, with accessories versus without those accessories. You can do things like that. Yeah, so if you if you add things within a part tagged area, they will automatically have that tag applied. And so that's going to work for if you have used the tagging rectangle or the custom shape tag, that's going to create these areas that you can add things to or remove things from, and it will automatically be adjusted. Now, this next way to apply these part tags will not. Okay, so these are going to be tagged individual and apply to selection. Okay, so I'm going to show you this here. So I'm going to go into my unit load view mode so that way I can select these individual things. And I'm going to select the chipboard here. Okay, so I've got that chipboard, I've got this one and this one. We're going to set this up for this A1 um, this one single bay here. Okay. So I'm holding down control while I'm selecting. Remember, you can hold control to deselect or to add something to your selection. So I've got all these chipboards selected. Now in my accessories part tag category, I'm going to go ahead and add a new tag here, and I'm going to call this one chipboard. Now I've got all those chipboards selected. So in this tag, while this tag is selected, I can go ahead and do apply to selection. And now you'll see that it's saying that 4 individual items have been selected here. I'm going to go ahead and give this one another color. We'll make it a bright blue. There we go. All right. Now, when I toggle through these, I am going to go into my normal view, or I'm sorry, my tags view here. That way I can see my part tagged highlights again. And as I toggle through, you'll see that here's that A1, and then here is that chipboard. So those individual chipboards. Okay. Now, if I were to delete the actual chipboard, that tag will go away. So if I deleted one here, I would then only have 3 chipboards included. But if I added other accessories or other things in, they're not going to automatically be tagged because I use the tag by selection. Now you can also do the tag individual. So if I use this tag individual, I'm going to be able to select individual things that I want to apply this tag to. So let's say that I wanted to apply it to this extra chipboard, maybe these two. I do need to be in my unit load view to be able to do this. We're going to go ahead and tag individual. Here we go. It's going to turn green when I hover over it. It's a little bit tough to see there, but as I'm hovering over that chipboard, you can see it turning green. So I'm going to left click. Let's say that I want to left click there. Okay, so now in my part tagging, I can see that I have 8 individual. Okay, so whatever I want to actually tag individually here, I can do that as well. So I can do it either by my selection or I can select the tag itself and then tag individually. Either way is going to apply that to that individual item. Now, the other thing with this is that you can remove. So here's that tag individual. In my quick properties, I have the option to remove. So if I decide that I want to not include these chipboards, I can go ahead and remove those things from that selection. Now, again, this will only work for the things that have been tagged manually, either by tag individual or apply to selection. If I try to remove maybe this bay from this partial system lower half, it will not allow me to because it is in that section. And anything in that area will automatically have that tag applied. Yeah. So is there a way to mass select accessories or other items for part tagging? There is. That is a great question. So a couple ways that we can do that. I'm going to go into my calculations and I can find the chipboard that I want to select. I can locate on drawing and it will automatically select those for me. So it's kind of tough to see here. I clicked on the wrong thing here. Interesting. Interesting. Let's do that. It's grabbing my flu spacers instead. That is something that we may want to have you guys look at in January. The locate on drawing is not working with your chipboards. It might be because it's from that, um, it's a new addition in calculations. You might want to just double check that one. But you should be able to right click here and locate on drawing, and it should automatically select all of those things for you. Let's go ahead and try it with something else. Let's do it with those row spacers. Locate on drawing. There we go. So that one's working properly. I think it's just that the chipboard from the essentials, but that is the easiest way to mass select something. I'm going to make this smaller so that way we can see it as we're working here. Let's say that I wanted to maybe choose those uprights. I'm going to just right click, locate on drawing, and it will highlight all of those uprights for me. So absolutely, if you want to tag all of those accessory items, that's going to be the easiest way. I did not add any accessories here, so let's go ahead and try, let's do this. Let's do our speed guard products, and let's add this to the whole system for both. This will be a good example as well. So now I'm adding these in. Because I'm adding them in, they're automatically going to be added to the part tags in those areas, but then I can also tag them separately. So let's go ahead and go to that. Let's find them here. Do we see them? Is that these guys? Nope. Thank you. I don't know the part numbers. Okay, we'll locate on drawing. There we go. All right. Okay, so these ones again, I think these are a little bit new. It should go ahead and grab all of them for you when you do this. Okay, here's five. There we go. There are the five. All right. It's kind of interesting the way that it's separating these ones out. I've got some doubles, but as you are adding your accessories, the way that this will work is that you could right click and locate on drawing. Again, Corey, that might be something that you speak with Gabe about the way that these are being selected. It's kind of interesting how it is. This one works beautifully. I'm not sure what happened with that other system, but this is how it should work. Again, I might need another clean start here. My CET was having some hiccups this morning, but here is how you can do that. So let's go ahead and tag these ones. These ones are behaving really well for us. So maybe I'll go ahead and add this to our accessories as well. So we'll have those chipboards and then we'll have these accessories as well. So I'll go ahead and open up my part tagging. And let's say that instead of accessories here, let's go ahead and change this to, we will change this to our, we're going to say our guards. And we're going to apply this to the selection. There we go. And now let's remove these chipboards. So I'll go ahead and use my tag individual with my remove, and I'll go ahead and remove these chipboards. So we'll just do that guarding here for our accessories instead. There we go. All right. When we go into our tags view mode, that's when we're going to be able to see our different tagged areas. Notice that I cannot see the tagged individual items here in my tags view mode. I'm just going to be able to see my different tagged areas. But if I open up my part tagging dialog window and then I actually toggle to those different tags, that's when I'm going to be able to see those highlights. Okay, so we've done some part tagging. Again, this is all just kind of hypothetical, and you can really, really get creative with these depending on what you need to accomplish. And if you come into a situation where you feel like maybe you could use part tagging for something, but you're not really sure how to accomplish it, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can help you work through that. Okay, so now that we've gotten our part tagging applied, let's go ahead and talk about how we can actually work with these things. I am going to give you a moment here to add some part tags into your drawing yourself. So if you have not already, if you would please just add two systems into your drawing and then go ahead and apply a part tag one category. We're going to make this our phases category. Add two tags here, have a phase one and phase two, and section those out by phase for me. So you're going to have one that's phase one, and then another one that is phase two. Okay. I will give you a moment to do that. You don't need to do anything super crazy for this, just as long as you have something that you can practice with in calculations. All right.
Yo,
So,
hold on one
oh,
second.
yep, no problem. Phone call. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at calculations now. So we talked a little bit yesterday about understanding calculations and seeing that we could expand them a little bit and get some more information. But let's go ahead and dig into it a little bit more today. All right, so to access calculations, you're going to go up to this top right-hand corner and click on that price or where it says calculation. So depending on those control panel settings that you've selected, it's either going to be the price or it will just say calculation. That will open up your calculation dialog window. Now I'm going to maximize this so that way I can see everything. And what we're seeing is every line item for all of the things that are in the drawing. This is going to include everything that is in our drawing. So even if we have, maybe we've set something up off to the side to kind of, kind of make something as like an extra example, or maybe we have like an alternate or something like that. Anything that we've gotten in our drawing is going to be included here. So we want to be really careful with this main article view. It is not able to be filtered. So every single thing that is in your drawing is going to show up here. Now, every drawing will have this main article view, and this is your way to know all of the parts and pieces that are actually in your drawing right now. What we're seeing is a number of different columns, and these columns can be customized. It is highly customizable. So we're going to work on checking out how we can customize these different columns and the different information that we're seeing here in the main article view. All right, so to do that, where the main article tab is, there's also a little manila folder next to it. So we're going to go ahead and click on that little folder, and that is going to open up our main article view settings. Okay, now notice that up at the top it says name, and the name is main, and I cannot rename that. Okay. Again, every single drawing is going to have this, regardless of what you're working on. It's going to have that main article view. And again, it cannot be filtered. So if we look over here at this filter tab, it tells us, hey, we cannot filter the main article view. Okay. But what we can do is we can control what kind of information is actually showing for us here in this main article view. Typically, the main article view is going to be more for like internal purposes. So it's for you to see what's happening. So it's what kind of information do you want to have quickly at a glance? So do you want to see the list price? Do you want to see, the quantity? Do you want to see the information about the thing? What kind of information do you want to have showing here? This is all going to come into play for you. So I have a number of different columns selected. When I have this tab for columns highlighted, I can scroll down and I can actually see all of these different options that are available. Now, for a lot of these columns, there's not going to be any actual information there. So you'll need to know which columns you really need to have. Um, for example, you might not have um, like a pitch option because that's going to be something that is for a different type of product, right? So you're not going to have any pitch information that you need. So there's going to be a lot of extra columns that you don't need here. So don't let this worry you too much. There's not going to be pertinent information for you in every single one of these columns. You can come in and you can choose different options. And I'm going to let the Speedrack uh, family let you guys know if there's a different way that they would like you um, to work with these calculations. Right now, the defaults for the core function that I usually show is this list price. But for discounting, I'm going to let you work with Speedrack individually to sort that out. But what we can do is we can control what we're seeing here. So if there's a situation where maybe you're specifying from multiple companies, maybe you're specifying racking from Speedrack, and maybe you're also specifying some other kind of product from some other company. You can actually choose to show the company. So let's go ahead and turn company on. So we'll know that these are Speedrack. And then these ones here that say CET material handling, those are going to be those chipboards, right? So if you've got multiple companies that you're working with, you can do something like that. Now you can also choose a few other things that are helpful. We've got a couple new things that we just added, and that's going to be this attribute description and attribute note. So this makes it so we can actually add some more information here. And this is, again, really nice for this main article view. Because again, this is more meant for kind of the internal workings because it's not filterable and it's not renameable. So what we're doing here is we are adding these columns by just selecting the eyeball icon. And as we select them, they're going to appear for us up here in our calculations. Now you do have these green arrows, and these green arrows are going to allow you to control where things are landing in this particular spreadsheet here. So let's say that I wanted my attribute note to be in a different position. I could actually use this green arrow to adjust where I want that to be. Okay. Now, if you've got a bunch of stuff by default that has no information in it, you can turn that off by unchecking the little eyeball. The only thing that I would really recommend that you keep, even without the option or without any kind of information in it, is that options column. And the reason for that is because when you do expand your information, that options column is where you're actually going to be able to see the different information for those different items. Okay. So I do recommend that you keep that options column here, even though it looks like there's no information. Now, I did add the attribute description and the attribute note. So if we wanted to make a note about something, we could do that here. So we can go ahead and double click in. Here we go. All right, Corey's got a note for us in the chat. So please treat the pricing in calculations as a high-level budget estimate and all pricing will still be handled internally. So reach out to Speedrack for with your BOM. Okay, so here we go. So here's the attribute description. So it does give a description here automatically, and you can double click into that cell and make changes. So let's say that I wanted to give some kind of other information there. If I make a change to that cell, it's going to change the color of that cell for me. But I can also do this attribute note and attribute description to give even more information. So let's say I will say that this is my note and this is going to be my extra description. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and add that note. And now let's add the extra description. I do need to click away from the cell to have it actually save there for me. But there we go. Now I have that extra information. So if I had a whole bunch of information that I needed to add here for this particular line item, I could add it in here. This is great for if you have really specific information that you need to include with some kind of particular part. Maybe you've got a note that you need to double check some specific sizing or something like that. This can be really helpful as well. So you can add in your own descriptions and notes. Okay. Now, while you are working with these view settings, once you've gotten your columns done, you can also adjust your grouping, your sorting, and your summary information. Now, for your main article view, I would recommend that you leave your grouping and your sorting as the default. Grouping is going to group by company by default. You'll see that nothing is checked here. If you want to control this in any other way, you can. What this is going to do is it's going to create subtotals in between for you. So for your main article view, I would recommend right now not doing anything by grouping. We'll look at this again when we start looking at our part tagged areas and creating actual quotes for those particular areas or bombs for those areas because we're not generating a specific quote here. We're doing our estimates. Okay, next for the sorting, the default is to be sorted by part number by alphabetical order. If you change it to some other option, you will need to go ahead and choose part number again to have it go back to that default. But you can sort by any of these different options. We've got lots of different ways that you can sort this list. Maybe you want to sort by price. Maybe you want to sort by description instead. Maybe you want to sort by quantity. However you want to manage this, you can select how you want to sort. All right, next in the summary, that summary is going to be down here at the bottom. All right, real quick, if everybody isn't reading the chat, it says Corey is letting you know if anybody else is having the issue where things are duplicated in the BOM, like on mine where it's different items. I've got it part tagged out, and so that's why it's kind of separating some things in a weird way here. But if anybody's having any issues where things are being doubled up, please reach out to Corey, okay? All right. So the summary is all of this information down at the bottom. And right here, there is a little arrow, so it's possible that yours is minimized. And if you want to see all of that information, you're going to go ahead and click that little blue arrow, and that will show you the rest of that information. And all of the lines that are included here in the summary are shown right here. So you can actually click through each of these lines, and you can choose whether or not they are enabled or disabled. If you want to show a line, you're going to have it enabled. And if you want to not show a line, you can go ahead and just click this off and it will be disabled. Now, each of these is able to be adjusted with all of these properties to the right. Again, I would recommend that you would leave this set as the default for now. I will say, though, that if you are going to be using the summary information at all, the default for the program, because it is a European company, is it's going to say your total before VAT, which is the same thing as tax. It's just the European version. And so you might have something, you might have a line here that says VAT. You might want to adjust it, but all you have to do is click into that line, change what you want it to say, and that is what will be showing down at the bottom. Now, once you've gotten all of this set up how you would like it, you can click this Save Default. And what that will do is it will make it so every time that you open CET, these columns, this grouping, this sorting, and this summary information is how CET will look for you going forward. So you can go ahead and click that Save Default. And then, like I said, every time that you open up a new drawing, or you have a new main article view for any drawing, you are going to be able to see all of these columns in this particular manner, and you are going to get that same grouping and sortation. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. So now let's say that it is time for us to create some estimates. Okay. I can go ahead and click this Create New. Now, this is going to create a new article view for me. When I create a new article view, it's going to use my defaults. Okay, so this is what I had set for my default. So before I started making changes to my main, I did not actually save this as my default, these extra things. But this is how my defaults come in. So all of these columns and that particular sortation, all of that summary information, all of this is going to be included in my new article view. But let's say that we want to adjust this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click this new article view, view settings. Right here, this is the Manila folder that is with this article view 2. Okay, I'm going to click that. And that's going to open up my view settings for this particular article view. So for this one, I'm going to set it up for our phases. All right. I'm going to keep all of my columns how they are. I'm not going to change my columns at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my grouping. So I want to group this by part tag category. So I'm going to remember the category name that I want to group this by. And if you need a refresher, you can always go back into your drawing view, open up your part tagging to recheck that to see what it is. But for this one, I know that I named it phases. So I'm going to come down in my list and I'm going to find that part tag name. Now notice that I've got all of these different groupings, but I do also have all of the different category names that I created as well. So any category name that you create and use within part tagging will also show up now in this grouping list. So I'm going to choose phases. And then if I want to actually sort this in any other different way, I can choose that. I'm not going to do that here today. I'm fine with how I have this set up right now. And let's see here. This is interesting. The row spacer should have automatically been applied within one of the other, within one of those phases. They should have automatically gone there. This was also kind of popping up in a strange way. So it's some, Corey, I would dig into your row spacer specifically, just because it does appear that they're wanting to be in their own kind of place. They should be automatically within those part tagged areas. All right. I'm not going to change my summary information, but I can adjust my filters. So now that we have this filter tab active, we can actually filter in many different ways. So we can filter by all of these different options. Something that is really handy though, is when you are working with your part tags, you can choose to filter on or off things from particular part tags. So maybe I only wanted to show my phase 1 products. I can go ahead and filter everything else off. And now I'm only going to be showing the estimate for phase 1. Okay, maybe I want to show the phase 2 items. I can show those in phase 2. Okay. So however we want to section this and however we want to kind of portion this out, we can do that. Now let's do another example. So this one's going to be our phases. And let's do another new article view. I'm going to click into those article view settings. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just filter it. We're not going to group it in any other way. We're just going to go ahead and filter. And for this one, we are going to filter by, let's go by those accessories. So we're going to filter off everything that was not tagged as an accessory. So now all we have is that tagged guards accessory. So really quickly and easily, I'm able to see the quote for just the guards. Okay. And I'll go ahead and name this our accessories, guards. There we go. Close it. And so now I can create as many different new article views as I would like. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at our part tagging and let's see what else we have. We've got the upper half, lower half, and then we've also got the bay. Let's go ahead and do an individual bay. Okay. So we're going to go back into calculations. We'll do another new article view. We'll open up those article view settings. And in that filter, I'm going to find that category name, which is bay. And I'm going to filter off everything that is not that A1 bay that we wanted to include. So there we go. There's the estimate for that one individual bay. Okay. So you can see how powerful this is. And depending on what you are trying to accomplish, you can do lots of really cool things with part tagging. Really, really awesome stuff that we can do here. And just depending on what kind of thing you want to accomplish, there's different ways to get there, but part tagging is one of the really, really easy ways to do most of what you need to do. Real quick, I would love to ask, is there something that you typically would need for an estimate that maybe you're wondering if you could accomplish here? I would love to hear some real life examples. Maybe I can guide you through it here. We've got a little bit of time. I can show you if there's something specific that maybe I haven't covered that maybe you do frequently. I would love to be able to help you with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to pull up an exercise for you. So I would love for you guys to create a new article view. And with that new article view, I would like you to filter it to just show your phase two product. Yes, the BOM can be exported. So from your calculations window, you can go into this file dropdown, and then you can click this Excel export. Go ahead and throw it on my desktop here. And let's open that up. So here we go. Here's that main article view, and then the subsequent article views. You're very welcome. That's a great question. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to work on this, and then we are going to talk about the pay-per-view. We did talk about the Speedrack pay-per-view tools. I'm going to show you a couple other things that you can do in pay-per-view that are sort of in addition to what we talked about yesterday, but we will do that in about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the paper view. Now, we did talk a little bit yesterday about that paper view. Go ahead and close out of calculations here. But to access paper view, you are going to click on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to where it says paper, and that is going to take you into your paper view mode. Now, remember, we did have the ability to create auto papers. I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's say, an A4. I'm going to create some auto papers here with my different systems. So here we go. This is beautiful. I've got my top down, and then I've also got my information for my different bay types. So there's my A1 and my A2. There we go. Now, when I look at this original paper sheet, I've got different little thumbnails down at the bottom, one for each sheet. When you first open up your paper view, you're going to have one paper and it's going to say just paper on it. When you create your auto papers, you're going to be able to create those extra sheets. However, if you want to create just a blank paper, you can do that by clicking on this Insert New Paper page. Okay. You can also open pages from a file. So if for some reason you want to load something in, maybe you've got something that you want to print off here. Maybe you've got some other kind of title block or some kind of information. Maybe you've got some terms and conditions or something like that that you want to add in. You can add whatever kind of paper you've already saved as a paper file. You can load those in by clicking on this little folder. This will allow you to open it up. Okay. Next, you have this change paper orientation. This is going to swap the paper orientation. I do want to just give you a quick heads up. Notice that if I do this to a sheet that has things on it, if I click this change paper orientation, oh, Speedrack, look at you guys. You guys are amazing. So typically, if I add things into a paper, I'm going to go ahead and load a standard title block here so you guys can see this, but Speedrack is amazing. So normally, what will happen is all of the items that were created on that paper will stay in position and the paper itself will change, but not the items that were created on top of it. But your auto sheets will automatically adjust for you. You guys are on top of it. This is awesome. All right. So that is that change paper orientation button. Next, we have a copy selected paper. So let's say that we wanted something that was very, very similar to something that we already had, but maybe we wanted to make a quick adjustment. We could go ahead and do a copy, and that will create that copy for us. Now we can also delete a selected paper. So let's say that I wanted to delete this one that I just showed you as an example. I can click that delete selected paper, say yes, and the paper will be removed. Now I can also save a selected paper. So let's say that I created something here within Paper View myself by using our different tools. So maybe I had some annotations, maybe I was working on a title block, something like that. I can actually create things here and then I can save that paper if I want to. Okay. Now, when you're working with papers, you can left click and drag these around so you can adjust the order that these sheets are in. Yeah, no, that is a major a major thing that you guys added, and I'm really impressed. Um, so you can left click and drag these whichever order you would like them to be in. Okay. And now these are also selectable in different ways as well. So instead of just clicking onto an individual, I can hold down my shift key and it will select everything in between the original selection and the last. So just like any kind of like Windows command, that you make one selection, hold down shift, and then make another selection, and it highlights everything for you. You can also use the control key to select multiple that are maybe not all together. Okay. And you can press control to remove selections from that as well. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you have maybe done something like clicked create auto papers a bunch of times and sometimes things like that happen. Maybe you've got a bazillion sheets that you don't need. Okay, maybe you've done something silly and you've created a bunch of copies, and you don't need a whole bunch of stuff that you end up with. You can actually select multiple and you can delete multiple altogether. Now, I do like to show this because this is kind of an interesting thing that happens when you do create that copy. It's going to put the copy next to each original. So you'll see that it doesn't do the whole series and then another series. It's going to put them all together. Okay. But maybe I only want one copy of everything, please. Thank you. So I can go ahead and make a selection that includes multiple sheets. Go ahead and click that delete button and I can get rid of all of those extras. Okay. So you can work with these in those different ways. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete these other ones. I'm going to keep one. We'll keep that one. So that way we can show you some other examples. Okay, so we've got our 2D, and then we've got our elevation views. This is fantastic. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's look at some of the other tools that are available. Here we are. Um, Real quick, before we dig into the tools, one other thing that I wanted to mention. You'll see that these are automatically given names. So the sheets that are generated are going to be called sheet, and then the papers that we're adding here, they're going to be called paper. If you want to change the name of that particular page, you can just change it up on the top. So whatever makes sense for you for how you are working, you can change those if you need to. So let's say that you have a whole bunch of different bay types. It might be beneficial for you to rename the sheet to something that will help keep you organized. So like A1 and A2. Now I can quickly see that this page shows me my A1 and A2 bays. Okay. Or if you've renamed your bays, rename it to whatever makes sense. But you do have the power to keep yourself organized by renaming up here on the top. Okay. Now, in the Tools extension tab here, looks like the wrench and the ruler again. We've got some really cool things that we can do. We can add 2D view clips and we can add 3D viewports. Now, the 2D view clip is what we're seeing when we're looking at this sheet right here. This is a top-down 2D view clip. Okay, so let's go ahead and add one of those in. Notice that this is a nested tool group. So I've got a 2D view clip and a 2D empty. 2D empty is intended for when you are creating a blank template, and you just want to create something as a placeholder. For all other instances, you're going to be using this 2D view clip. Okay, so go ahead and use that 2D view clip version. So I'm going to go ahead and left click to anchor this and then just left click somewhere else to place it. When I do that, it's going to automatically pop me into my view clip edit mode, which has this lovely beige background. So let's say that we want to really show this one bay that we were calling out as an individual bay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do a 2D view clip right here. So I'm going to left click once to anchor it and then left click again. Okay, so here's my call out for that individual bay that we were going to show. Okay, so in our article views, when we're showing just that individual bay, here's the one. Now we can also add an additional view. So let's go ahead and do a 3D viewport. Okay, so I'm going to left click to place that or to anchor it and then left click one more time to place it. Notice that the tool is still active on my cursor. So if I try to click into this box, it's going to start placing more viewports. So I just want to be careful that I do manually excuse this by either pressing escape or by swiping left past my extension tab area. Once I do that, once my cursor is freed up, I will be able to see the 3D view here. I can maneuver within this just like I would my 3D drawing view. So I'm going to click into the space. And by clicking into the space, this is going to allow me to actually move around. So I'm going to move just like I would my 3D view. So I can zoom, I can pan, and I can orbit. So there we go. We'll get a good view of that bay. Okay, so whatever kind of view we want, we can go ahead and set that up. Let's say that we're going to take a good look at it like this. There we are. Okay. Once we are satisfied with where this is set, I can actually lock the position here. And that makes it so I'm not going to be wiggling around at all in this view. If I actually um, try to adjust this view at all, it's going to move this whole viewport instead. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to undo that. Now with the 3D views, something that's really cool is we do have some lighting and rendering options. So normal quality is going to give you just a basic rendering, okay? Now you do not ever have to click this render button, but I'm going to click it to show you the preview. This is just to preview what it's going to look like, okay? I want to show you what the normal quality is going to look like. Again, you do not ever have to click this render button. When you go to print this PDF, it's going to automatically render for you, okay? There we go. So this is what the normal quality looks like. Now, you can also do a quick render, which is going to be similar. The textures are going to be slightly lower quality. If you do a high quality render, it's going to be, again, pretty similar. It's just going to take longer to do, especially depending on what kind of graphics card you have. The higher quality your renders are, the longer it will take. So again, you do not ever need to click this, but I do like to show it. So notice that the quality is not really visibly different. Okay. So if you're going to do a 3D rendering, I recommend that you leave it on that normal quality if that's what you want to do. And if you want to do a really nice rendering, do it in Photolab. So we're going to talk about Photolab here in a minute. But for now, we're going to, if you're going to use just a regular 3D, that's when you're going to want to do this normal quality. Now, you can also do a contour image. So a contour image is going to create a line drawing that's all black and white for you. Here we go. We'll give this a second. We'll give it a few seconds. There we go. Okay, so now we can see that contour image. So we're able to see that line drawing of that particular bay. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit deep into this. Okay, so both of these view clips have a visibility control. Okay, so right here, here's the visibility for my 3D. And then if I look at my 2D, I also have my visibility right here. Okay. So if I want to adjust what I'm actually seeing in either of these views, I can adjust using this visibility button. Now I can also adjust by using different filters. So let's say that in this particular view, I want to just show that one individual. I can choose to filter based on my other options. Okay, so maybe I want to only show my phases. Maybe I want to uh, only show, you know, my bays and not my actual annotations. If I've added things into my drawing, maybe I want to turn off my CAD plan. I can adjust my visibility that way. Okay, so we can highly control what we're showing in these different viewports. Now, this one is really cool. If we go into visibility, we're going to be able to do the same thing. Again, we can work with our filters and we can work with our view modes. Remember, I did show you that we had that unloaded view mode, right? So I can choose to make this an unloaded view mode. And now I'm going to do, whoop, I want unloaded. Thank you. And now I'm going to go ahead and preview that render one more time. And now my contour image will be that unloaded view. So we don't have to have it be unloaded within our 3D drawing view, just our regular drawing space. We can have all of our unit loads showing there, but then we can show these different views in our 3D views as unloaded. So if we want to get a good look at that without having the actual unit loads, maybe we want to really call out some specific accessories or something like that, we can use that unloaded view. Okay. So there are a couple cool things that we can do. I'm going to go ahead and create one more page. Now, you do have some other things that you can do with your tools here. You can include images. So if you wanted to bring in some kind of image, you can do that. We've got this load image. We do have a help grid available, which allows you to do something like this, where you can just create this really easy grid. Uh, this is what you were looking for columns, right? For centerline columns, we don't actually have the help grid available in the drawing view. That would be a really great feature request, though. But we can do it here in the paper view. And so we can choose how many dividers we want. So if maybe we were creating something and we wanted it to be very even, we could do this. And then all of our lines and different things can snap to all of these different points. So that can be a helpful tool depending on what we are trying to create. Once you get that help grid in your drawing, it can be a little bit difficult to select because it looks like we've got lines everywhere. You do have to select it from the outside edge. Okay, so I'm going to left click that outside edge, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete that from our drawing here. Next, we do have a tags legend. So to show off this tags legend, this one's pretty cool. I'm going to add in another 2D view clip, and I'm going to add our entire space again. Okay, so I'm just going to left click to anchor it, left click to place, and that will pop me back into my paper view here. Remember, if we do go to make an adjustment, we can double click into it and then we can make that adjustment. So I'm just going to left click and kind of drag this around. If we double click back in to make an adjustment, we're not going to be automatically kicked back out into the paper view after we make the adjustment. We do need to click the X on the top right. So if you ever find yourself in this view and you're like, I don't know why it's not bringing me automatically back, you do need to click this X to get back into your paper view here. All right. Now with this 2D view, I'm going to go ahead and choose a 2D view add-on. Okay, so this is going to apply a filter to this 2D view clip. I'm going to apply this show part tag color. Okay, there we go. So there is the show part tag color tag. Now, when I look at my quick properties, I can choose from this drop down under configure to actually configure my view clip, which is going to adjust my normal view clip properties, or I can choose to configure my part tag colors. Okay, I can choose to configure my part tag colors because I have added this add-on. Okay, really important to note, you're not going to be able to find this option if you have not applied an add-on. But here we go, I can configure that, and then now I can choose which category I actually want to show. So do I want to show my partial system for my Eastern systems, or do I want to show that one bay? Do I want to show my phases? So we'll go ahead and set this one up with phases. Now, coming down to the tools, I have a tags legend. I can go ahead and left click in here to place that. And then once I get it placed, I can choose which category I'm showing. So I'm going to show my phases. There we go. And I can choose if I want my description to be on or off. I can highly customize this as well. There we go. So we can show quickly which is going to be phase one and which is going to be phase two. So this can be really helpful for helping your customers understand kind of your process and your plan for them. Okay, so that is that tags legend. Now we also have other tools available. We've got things like dimensions, we've got text. Maybe we want to be able to call things out. We've got that leader with text, all kinds of different tools that we can add in addition here to help communicate anything that we need to communicate. All right. Next, we have this drawing tab. And this is going to be for adding other annotation elements. So we can add lines, we can add arrows. If you need to call out like an individual thing, you can use the revision cloud to do that. There's lots of different tools that are available for you here. So it is kind of a nice thing to be able to add to your drawing if you need to be able to use any of these different items. Okay, so this is going to bring us to our next exercise. So instead of creating your own, I would ask that you would create your auto papers. This has been updated, so it's going to look like this. Okay, go ahead and do that, create auto papers. And then I would also like you to create one new page as well. So that way you can play around and you can see kind of how these different tools are working. Okay, so once you get your auto pages made and you create one extra paper, I'm going to have you guys add a 2D view clip of your entire space. And we're going to change it up because we did do our part tagging. Instead of doing this apply add-ons with show black and white, because your 2D view is all going to be black and white, let's go ahead and have you do the show part tag color. And then I would also like you to add a part tag legend. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. All right. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to work on this, and then we're going to take a bit of a break. So how about we come back at 30 minutes after the hour? That will give you about 5 minutes to work on this exercise and give you 10 minutes to take a quick break. And when we return, we are going to continue on. We got a couple other things to talk about here, and we'll get into our rendering in Photolab and how to actually print our reports. Hey, so the next thing we're going to look at today is the photo lab. So how can we actually create some renderings of our space once we've gotten everything drawn? So I'm going to go ahead and pop into CET here, and I'm going to go back into my drawing view. So I'm going to pop into my two views. Here we are. And we can choose how we want to kind of see these things. This is great for if you've added that architecture or anything else, but you can also do it if you just have some freestanding product. You are going to get nicer renders with those types of situations. I might actually just come in. I've got this kind of blue color for my unit loads. So I'm going to adjust this here and let's take a look at what we're actually using. Let's make it a more of a cardboard box instead. Okay, so we're going to save that. There we go. Now we've got kind of a cardboard instead of that blue color. So it's just a little bit more realistic. Now we can also change the color of our beams and our uprights if we wanted to. For now, I'm going to go ahead and leave all of this just as is. I just know that that blue color for those unit loads is kind of a little bit wacky. So we'll go ahead and do something like this. Okay. All right. So to access the photo lab, you are going to click on this little beaker and film strip icon. You're not going to have this purple icon. You'll have this photo lab button though right next to calculations. Okay. So clicking on that is going to open up the photo lab for you. Now you can also get into the photo lab by hitting F2 on your keyboard. That will bring you to the same place here. I'm going to go ahead and expand this out to give us lots of room. Okay, so when you first open Photolab, you're going to see the photograph setup off to the left, and you're going to see the post-processing effects to the right. Now, this does look like a lot of crazy information. Right now, I am in advanced mode, so it looks like a whole lot of sliders and a whole lot of kind of crazy information here. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom, on either side, I'm going to see a simple button, okay? So I want to click that simple button. This is how I want to work in the photo lab. The advanced version is really for people who have a little bit more experience and they're a little bit more familiar with lighting settings and all of that. You want to start out in the simple mode. Our developers have worked really hard to make really, really high quality renderings for you without having to do much work or needing to really be an expert in lighting and rendering. Okay. So we're going to be in simple mode. So when you open up your photo lab, it may look like this, where you've got just some big buttons. That's perfect. But if you open it up and you've got all these sliders and all of this crazy stuff happening, make sure you go into that simple mode. Okay. Now, when I'm in simple mode, you can see this is much more simplistic. I've got some basic big buttons here, and that's what we're going to be working with. All right. Now, the first thing that we have available is the product lighting. This is where you should start with all of your renderings. Most people tend to gravitate to the realistic because they think that's going to give them the best render. Unfortunately, that is not the case. It's a little bit misleading with the name, right? But that product lighting is really where you want to start for the vast majority of your renderings. Product lighting is going to give you diffuse shadows. It's going to give you high quality textures, and it's really good for these situations where you're kind of in like an open air space. Okay. From here, you can choose the resolution. So that's going to change the size of what we're seeing here. It's going to change that resolution. I'm going to set mine for 1080p. And then I can also change the render quality. Now, the higher the quality, the longer it will take to render. So again, depending on your graphics card, you may want to start with like a low quality render if you're working on a computer that maybe is already struggling, just to help with those renderings. I'm going to go ahead and use high. I will also let you know that I'm using an additional tool. I'm using the Aura Accelerator. If you find yourself in a situation where you are using the Photo Lab really frequently and you're doing a whole lot of renders, it might be beneficial for you to check out that Aura render acceleration. And what that does is it sends the rendering out um, to a different service to be rendered. So instead of using your own computer's power to render these things, it's sending it out and then getting it back. And so it does tend to take significantly less time with the accelerator. It is available on the marketplace. It is a paid tool. It does cost money, but they do offer a free trial for that. So if you are a person that does a ton of rendering, um, I recommend that you test out that trial. I'm going to be doing my rendering at a high quality, and you'll see kind of how long it takes for this. Just know that mine is going to take less time than it would if I ran it on my computer, and I've got a pretty beefy graphics card. So um, kind of buckle in here. The rendering does take some time, even with the accelerator, even if you are on a really powerful computer, it does take a bit of time. And again, the higher your quality, the more time it's going to take. So once we set the quality, I'm going to leave the background alone. I want this white background. I'm going to come down to the bottom here where it says render. And now I'm going to click render. I can set this view up any way that I would like, just like my 3D drawing view, I can navigate around. So I can zoom, pan, and orbit however I want this to be. Okay. And once I'm satisfied, I can click that render button. Now this is going to render for me. I will get an additional little window that pops up that is my render tasks. So I'm going to minimize this here so we can kind of see it happening in action. There's my render tasks. There we are. So I can see kind of the progress of what is being rendered. I can render many different things all at once. Again, if you're on a computer that kind of struggles to begin with, you might not want to do that. If you're on a computer that can handle it with no problem, you can render a bunch of things. You can queue up a bunch of things and it will all render for you. Now it will show me my little preview. It's not quite done yet, but it's almost there. I do have a blue outline around this view right now. That lets me know that it is currently being rendered. Okay. When I'm working with a new view here, it's going to have a gold outline. While it's being rendered, it's going to have a blue outline. And when it's finished, it's going to have a green outline. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to maximize this so we can get a little bit of a better look here. There we are. Okay, so that looks beautiful, right? So there we go. So that was that product rent or product lighting. Okay, really quick and easy. I didn't have to change anything else with that. It went ahead and rendered it for me really nicely. Okay, now let's go ahead and click the new button down here and we'll add another thumbnail. I'm going to leave it in that same position so we can compare these different rendering types. When I click that new, notice that this says photo 2 now. The first one is photo 1. I do want to keep myself organized. So if I'm creating renderings of different areas within my drawing, I might want to name these photos according to the area or according to whatever I'm actually trying to render. So for this, I'm going to right click on it. That's going to open up a menu for me. And from here, I can choose to rename it. Okay. So I'm going to pick rename and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this our product lighting. And for this one, we're going to name this one realistic. Okay, I'm going to click into realistic here. I'm going to set my resolution, set my quality. I'm not going to change my background at all. This is just going to be just like a sky blue background here. I can adjust where the sun is. So this is going to change where my shadows are. So I'm going to left click on the sun and drag it. And as I'm dragging it around, you can see that my shadows are changing. So depending on where I want my shadows to appear in my drawing, I can adjust. There we go. We'll do something like that. Okay. When I let go, those shadows are going to go away. Okay. It's only while I'm left clicking and dragging this around that it's going to appear. The closer to that center circle I am, the closer to high noon I will be. So I'm not going to get as long of shadows. And if I bring my sun out towards the edge of that circle, I'm going to have really long shadows. All right, so I'm not going to change anything else about this. I'm going to go ahead and click render. So realistic renderings are intended for a fully enclosed interior space. So let's say that you built the entire warehouse with the ceiling on it. Okay, so maybe you've added some trusses and you've added all of your beams and you've got your ceiling on and you've got lighting inside that space. That is when you really want to use the realistic setting. It doesn't look terrible, but the background is going to be really goofy here as we render this, and you'll see kind of what that looks like. Just know that this realistic setting is intended for a fully enclosed interior space. All right. While that's thinking, I'm going to go ahead and set up the next view. And we're going to create a contour image for this one. I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and rename. And we're going to call this contour. Again, I can change the resolution and the quality. I'll go ahead and make this one max. We'll go ahead and render that out. Here we go. This realistic is now complete. So you can see how the sun is showing here. It's very, very bright on the faces of these palettes where it's shining, and I can see those shadows. Again, this is very nice for textures. We can get some really high detail for the texture, but the lighting, again, is intended for a fully enclosed space where the light would be coming in through some kind of windows. Okay, so this is going to look a little bit goofy if you are using the realistic in an open area. Next, we have our contour. This one's still working. So we'll go ahead and create a new one. And this one's going to be the normal. I'm going to go ahead and right click and rename. We'll go ahead and set this to high. And we will click render for that. Now, normal is going to give us a single shade of shadows instead of having those diffuse shadows. We're going to have some really kind of sharp shadows. It's going to have simple textures and it's going to be a lower quality overall. This is going to be like what you would see in your 3D viewport renders. Okay. All right. And so we're going to leave it at these four. Here's our contour image. There we go. So we can see how that one turned out. That one's nice. And we will give our normal render just a minute to finish up here. All right. There we go. So you can see how these shadows are a little bit more intense. So I'm going to compare to the product lighting here, the normal versus the product lighting. You can see how the shadows are more diffuse. In the normal, we're getting that sun with the shadows, and we're not getting that high texture, that high quality texture. It's not terrible, right? And for most people, the normal is going to be pretty decent. You can achieve that normal from those 3D viewports, but again, that product lighting is generally going to be the nicest place to start. Now, once you have something rendered, it does have to be completely rendered before you can apply any post-processing effects. But once they are rendered, you can go ahead and work with this photo to adjust. So let's say that this photo is maybe a little bit dark. I can choose to make this brighter. So I've got to make brighter and make darker. So if I choose to lighten this up a little bit, I can actually brighten this up. So maybe it's not quite so dark. Okay. Now I can also click this auto adjust button. And that's going to change the temperature based on everything that's happening in my drawing. Sometimes the results are really nice. Sometimes I completely disagree with the results that it gives me. If I want to go back to how it was originally, I can click this neutral button and it will take me back to that original render. So you can see that this is more of a warm temperature. What it's doing is it's balancing out all of your whites in your drawing, in your rendering with this auto adjust. Again, sometimes it's great. Sometimes I don't agree with how it comes out. It's a good tool to try. But if you don't like how it turns out, you can click that neutral button and just manually adjust from there. Okay, there we go. Brightened it up a little bit. Now, there are some other things that we can do here. The rest of these items are going to be ways that we can change the appearance of what we're seeing. They're filters that we're adding onto this picture. Okay. So the first one is going to be a vignette. It's going to change the outline. It's going to darken that outline. It's going to give it a very like dramatic effect. This is good if you have something that you're focusing on in the center, but you don't really want to call attention to anything that's happening in the outline or in the outer edges. The old photo is going to desaturate it. Okay. Then we have our cartoon image that's going to increase the saturation and it's going to give you kind of these sketchy lines. Sometimes this can be a nice effect for some things, depending on the situation. And then we also have the pencil sketch, which is going to give you really sketchy lines. It's going to be similar to that contour image where it's all black and white, but it's also going to give you these really sketchy lines. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take it back to neutral. There we go. We'll brighten it up a little bit. And we will call that good. Now, once you are done working with your image, you can do a number of different things with it. The first thing you can do is you can actually right click on that rendered image and you can save it. So if I wanted to save this rendered image, I could. I could save it as let's go ahead and save it as a JPEG. I can also save it as a PNG or any of these other file types. I'm going to go ahead and save it as a JPEG. There we go. Now I've got this saved. I do not have to save this though. I'll show you how this works in just a moment. But if I do want to include this in some other kind of documents or have the image for use somewhere else, I absolutely can save it. Okay. So now that I'm all done with this image and saving it, I'm going to go ahead and close out of the photo lab. Now, one other thing to mention is that while things are rendering, let's say that I've queued up a bunch of stuff to render and I know it's going to take a long time to render, I can continue working in CET. I don't necessarily want to work in my drawing space adjusting things that are going to be affected within those particular renderings that I'm working on. But if I have like another area that I'm designing that isn't going to be shown in any of those renderings, I can absolutely keep working on that. And I can really get a lot of work done within calculations or in my paper view. So I can actually close Photolab out. And I'll show you this as a demonstration. Let's go ahead and just create one more product lighting rendering here. Go ahead and do one more of these. And maybe we want to show like side view, something like this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click render on this. And now I'm going to close out of Photolab while it is rendering. Okay, so I have something rendering. I can actually pop into calculations. I can work on things here. I can work on those article views. I can pop into my paper view and I can continue working. Let's say that I'm going to set up a page with some renderings on it. Maybe I want to show a rendering of these particular bays. Maybe there's something really specific that I want to call out and show a really beautiful rendering of. I can go ahead and keep working here. And when that rendering's done, I'm going to get a pop-up on the top. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to open up my Tools tab. And then from here, on the top in the drawing section, I have this Insert Rendering button. With this on my cursor, I'm going to left click to anchor it and left click to place it. Okay, now I'm going to swipe left to remove that from my cursor. Now I can either double click to pick a photo or I can choose a photo from this drop-down list. Now, because I have renamed all these photos, it's going to be really easy for me to know which one is which. But I also have the ability to click this little ellipse next to choose. And this will actually give me a preview of all of those different things. Okay, so now this one is rendered. Notice that I got my photo rendered pop up. Okay, but let's do this first one, product lighting. Click OK. Okay, there is that image straight out of Photolab. So I didn't need to bring in a saved photo or anything like that. I've got this straight out of Photolab. Now, the really cool thing about this is if I go back into Photolab and I make an edit to this rendering, this is going to automatically update for me because this is now linked to that particular photo. So if I were to go in and adjust the angle or adjust the lighting or anything like that, this particular image here in my paper is going to be automatically updated to that new version. Okay, so we can go ahead and click on that photo rendered to check out that finished photo. But like I said, we can continue working in CET without having any kind of issues with like, you know, n slowing down or anything like that. We can actually keep working while things are rendering. So we're not stuck here watching it render. Okay. All right, here's that other angle. So let's go ahead and add that other one in. Let's go ahead and add another one. We'll go like this. And if I double click, I will also get that list. So that's the same as clicking on this little ellipse right here. Okay, so I'll say that this is photo one. There we go. So there's our beautiful systems that we're putting into this space. Now, let's talk about that saved image. So I'm going to delete that first one that I put in. If I wanted to use that saved image instead of a Photolab image, I could. So I'm going to click the load image button. I'm going to left click to anchor it and left click to place it. Now this is larger than I need it to be, but I'm not going to worry about that until I get the actual image in because I know that the dimensions of that particular image are not an exact square. Okay, so don't worry about the sizing so much until you actually get the real image in. Okay, I'm going to double click to select an image. This is going to open up my File Explorer. So from here, I'm going to find my product lighting. There we go. There was that image that I saved before. Okay, so it looks exactly the same. The benefit of saving an image and bringing it in this way is when you go to print this report. So you go to print all of these documents, whether it's actually printing or creating a PDF out of them. It's going to take a lot longer for this to process as a Photolab image because CET has to transfer all of that information from Photolab here, and then it's transferring that into that PDF versus this image because CET has already gotten all of that image's information and it's right here ready to go. So this comes into play if you're doing an extremely large project and you've got a whole bunch of papers. It can take quite a bit of time to print these or to create the PDF out of them, especially if you're doing a lot of images from Photolab. Okay, it can take quite a bit of time. The benefit of using the Photolab images is if you make any changes, those images are automatically going to be updated for you. Okay. So let's say that you've gone back into Photolab and you've edited some angles or other things like that. I will say though that if you make a change in your drawing and you don't update your renderings, it's not going to automatically update. You do need to physically go back and re-render if you have made a change. So let's say that I decided that I only wanted, 3 levels high on these. Even if I'm using the Photolab image here, I do still need to change that in the Photolab. And once I've changed it in the Photolab, this image will automatically update to whatever the new image is in Photolab. However, if I have a saved image, I would need to save the new Photolab image and replace it. Okay. All right. So that is how we can work with those Photolab images. Now this is going to bring us to another exercise. So for this exercise, I would like you to create a rendering using the photograph setup. I want you to use product lighting for this, okay? Make sure you're on that simple photograph setup, not the advanced. Use product lighting to start. Create that rendering. And then I'd like you to apply some kind of post-processing effects. So I just want you to test out those different post-processing effects, even if it's just the make lighter or make darker. And then once you get that done, I would like you to insert that rendered photo into your pay-per-view. You can either save your rendering as an image and then load an image in to your pay-per-view, or you can use that insert photo from Photolab button that we talked about that is at the top of your tools extension, insert rendering. Either way, okay? So I'll give you a few minutes to work on this. Please let me know if you have any questions along the way. How's everybody's renderings going? Has anyone been able to get a really nice rendering? All right, I think I'm going to do 2 more minutes and then we will continue on to print reports. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about print reports. And we talk about print reports, we're going to be looking at printing both the pages that we created in pay-per-view and any article views that we've created. Now we can choose what we actually want to print and how we want to handle these different items. But if you want to just print everything all at once, that's fine. Or if you want to print individual things, that's great as well. And when we say print, we can do both a print to a physical printer, but for the most part, we are printing to a PDF. All right. So in CET, let's say that we are ready to print. We are going to access our print reports by clicking on this little printer icon up on the top near our new open and save buttons. Okay. We can also access this by pressing Control P, keyboard shortcut Control P, or we can access it from the File drop down and then going to Print Reports here. All right. Now, when we open up the Print Reports dialog, we're going to have a few tabs up on the top, but what we want to look at is this Report Settings CET report. Then each line on the left is going to have information that we can control or adjust. So this first one that says document contents, it does look like a header originally. It kind of looks just like these where it's a highlight and then for a header and then other information. Don't let that trick you. This is actually highlighting this document contents option. Okay. And there are some important options here in this document setting area that you're not going to be able to get into unless you dig into any of it, or unless you actually select this line. Okay. So for document contents, We're going to look at document settings. We can choose to show the report name and we can give it the drawing name or we can give it one or the other. And then we can add anything in addition if we would like to do that. So when we print this out, you will see that the name is going to show. And then we can choose if we want a logo to appear at the top of this bomb as well. And if you would like, you can click on the little ellipse here. That's going to take you to a file explorer. You can just go ahead and navigate to somewhere on your computer where you have a logo saved or on a network drive somewhere where you've got the logo saved and choose your logo. You can choose the size of your logo here as well. You can choose whether or not you would like to show the CET logo at the bottom of your sheets. You can choose the language and the currency as well. This is nice, especially if you're working with multiple currencies or in different areas. Okay, so we're just going to look at this part right now. We're going to deal with paper views when we get a little bit lower here, okay? So we're actually going to toggle into paper views now. We're going to leave these other ones unchecked. We don't need to print any of that stuff. We are going to turn on paper views though. If your paper views are unchecked, please check them on. Now we can handle our paper views and how we want to actually print these. So every active sheet will automatically be checked on here. If I have disabled a sheet here, or if I don't want to print something, what I can do is I can actually click on the little checkbox and that will turn that page off. Now, I always tend to like to work with my print reports while I'm in my paper view. I can do this from my other views as well, but I like doing it in my paper view because as I click through these different pages, I can actually see right away what pages I am choosing. So it is nice if you've renamed them. That's a good way to keep organized, but it's also nice to just do this in the paper view so you can quickly double check what you are choosing to turn on or turn off. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and print all of this just just to see kind of how it all is going to look when we print it all out. We've got our automatically generated sheets. We have our images that we've created. We've got those part tag areas with that tags legend. Then we've also got that contour image and that one close up of that one particular bay. Okay. So we've got all these pages, but again, I can choose to turn on or off these pages as I would like, and I can choose to print whatever combination of pages I would like. Okay, next, we're going to leave body as the default, but we are going to come down to the article views. Okay, we want to make sure article views are checked on. And remember, your article views are going to be all of those different tabs in your calculations. We have already done the work within calculations to set up the different columns that we want to show for each of those article views. But if you wanted to control them here within this setting, you can as well. So right now we are using the columns from each individual article view. If we want to change them manually, we can click this button and we'll be able to manually adjust them. I would recommend that you just use the columns chosen in each view. That's going to make your life a lot easier, especially because you've already done the work here. But if you need to make an adjustment for whatever reason, you can do that in this window as well. Okay, we're going to scroll down in this section and we're going to be able to access the rest of our options here. So you can choose to show the project name in the header. You can choose to show any of this other information. So this would be information that you've entered into your project info. Okay. You can choose to show that or not. You can choose to show the article view name in that header as well. So do you want to have the name of these article views showing, or do you want to just print it? I'll go ahead and turn that on. You can choose to show the file location in the footer. Most people choose to turn that off. Whoever you're giving this to probably doesn't need to know where on your computer this is located, right? So typically people will turn this off. You can choose to show the detailed information. If you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to expand all of these things. Okay. So you're going to have multiple lines for each of your items. So instead of having just the basic information, it's going to be expanded this way. And so this will typically create a much larger file. You're going to have a lot more pages if you've got a bunch of stuff in your drawing. But it is really good for doing things like a spec check where you want to see all of that information. So that is what this show detailed information is going to do for you. I'm going to go ahead and keep mine off. Now you can choose whether or not you want to show that summary, which is going to show you your totals. And you can expand the summary as well. So how much of that do you really want to see and how much detail within that summary do you want to have? If you allow your shortened column labels, that's going to just shorten those labels so everything will fit on your page. Then you've got a few different ways that you can show this. So standard is going to be a gray and white alternating between the line items. Grid is going to be all completely white with black lines in between your line items, similar to if you were to print out an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to have just lines between each of your cells. Simple white is going to be the text only, so everything will just be lined out just as text. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as standard. Now, this is the very important part. This is the selected article views. So right now I have everything turned on. So it's going to print every single one of my article views. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on. I'm going to print them all, but just know that you don't have to. Let's say that I only wanted to print my main article view, or maybe I just want the bomb for phase for this by phase. Whatever your situation is, you can control which of your article views you're actually printing. So please do not feel like you have to print this giant PDF if you've got a whole bunch of different article views. You can really easily select which article views you actually want to print here. Okay. Now, real quick, if you have anything else checked, make sure that you uncheck it. Sometimes you'll get some things that are defaulted on here. You want to turn that all off. That's going to print additional pages that you don't need. Okay. So just make sure that the only things that are checked here are paper view and article views. All right, next, I'm going to make sure that I am in landscape mode. So when I print my BOM, it's going to print as landscape. That will give me extra space for all of those columns. Things do appear better with the landscape mode. You do have this as an option though. If you really prefer it to be in portrait, you can, so you can test out what works best for you. Then in the settings area, I'm going to click this create an Adobe PDF document. And then down on the bottom, I'm going to click create PDF. We'll give this a little bit of time to process. I'm going to get a little progress window here. There we go. And we will let that think for a minute while we create this PDF. Now, like I said, the more pages you have, this can take a little bit of time. And especially if you're doing things like bringing in these photo lab images, sometimes those can be a little bit larger and can take some time for CET to process. So here we go. We are printing quite a bit here. This is a 9-page document, so I mean, not anything crazy, but we are creating kind of a larger one, but it didn't take too long. There we go. So here's that first page. Now notice that I don't have any margins. On that page itself, it showed that gray outline. None of that will print, okay? None of those outlines between those views will print. We are only getting the information that was within those views, so that's really nice, okay? Coming on down a little bit more, I'm getting my phases and my phase legend. And imagine these with your title blocks as well. Okay, I was just using blank pages for these, so they're not, they don't look very finished, but imagine this on your title block, okay? Next page, we have those renderings. So again, here's that saved image, and then here's the rendering from Photolab. Uh, both excellent quality here. No problems either way with those. And then coming on down, here is our auto sheets. So there is our top down, and then there are our bay views. Okay, next we're going to see our article views. So here's the article view name up on the top. Then my BOM plus my summary. And I've got those attribute notes and descriptions here in my main article view that I'm not going to see in the rest, right? So this can be really nice if there's something that you really want to call out or you really want to remember, okay? Next, we've got our phases. So here's phase one and my phase one total, my phase two total, and then my total. Okay, here's my accessories, my A1 bay. There we go. All right. Now, if you like how this turns out, then you can go ahead and save this wherever you want to save it, and this is ready to go. There is one other option that I wanted to show you in the print reports dialog menu, and that is to ask about file location. So if you turn that on, when you create the PDF, what's going to happen is CET is going to ask you to choose where you want to save this. Now, you are not going to get that until after you've already done all of the processing. And so, what happens for me most of the time is I will create my PDF and I will notice something that I want to change. And I'll be like, oh, no, okay, so I'll come into CET, make my change, and then I go to reprint it. And if I have this ask about file location on, if I've already told it where it's saving, I'm going to go ahead and save it to my desktop. Let's say that I've done this once already, right? And then I come in and I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, I want to kind of change this view. Okay, so I'm going to go back into CET and I'm going to change my view. Let's say that I wanted to create some kind of, different view or something. Maybe I make a little bit of a change, something like that. I say, okay, let's go ahead and create that PDF. Again, I'm going to have to reprocess it, so it's going to take a minute. But if I have this turned on, when it goes to ask me where I want to save this, I'm going to have to select that original PDF and just try to overwrite it, right? That's all fine and normal. However, if I still have that other PDF open, it will cause all of that to be lost time. So here's where I saved it before. Here's our CET report. CET report. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to say, oh yeah, I want to override this. Yep, yep, override it. Oh, well, guess what? It's still open and it's locked. So I cannot tell you how many times I've done this to myself. So use this one with caution. If you have the ask about file location turned on, make sure that if you have created the PDF once and then you're going back to edit, make sure that you close it because otherwise it will not be able to save again. Okay. That can be really frustrating, especially if you're doing something like a big bid where you've got a whole lot of pages and it takes a whole lot of time to process. That's all becomes a wasted time. Right. So I personally don't ever use this ask about file location. I will just have it create the PDF. And then once I'm satisfied with the PDF that has been created, then I will save that PDF wherever I want it to be. But just so you know, you do have this option to automatically save it first, but use that with caution. Make sure that you close the PDF if you've already created one once. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time for you. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click close here for CET reports. Couple other things to talk about that are not in the participant guide, but that I did want to go over with you real quick. There was that question about how you can export. So remember from calculation, you can click File and then Export. So if you need this to be in an Excel format, you can absolutely do that. And then The other thing is if you need to export this as a CAD file, you can. Okay. So you can go to the File dropdown and then go to Import and Export. Click Export Drawing. Choose where you want to export this to. So I'm just going to throw it on my desktop here. You can choose what type of file you'd like to save this as. So I'm going to choose a DWG. But notice that you can save it as a SketchUp file if you need to, or any other number of files. Okay, but we're going to choose DWG. I'm going to click Save. Now this has not actually been exported yet. I need to go through my export CAD drawing options before I actually get an export. But from here, I can choose if I want to scale it. I can choose if I want to export my 2D only, or if I want to do my 2D and my 3D together. I can choose if I want to also export my paper views, which is pretty cool. I can apply a filter to this export if I want. So maybe I want to only export my phase one. I can filter off my phase two, and then only phase one will be exported. Okay, so again, part tagging could come into play for doing AutoCAD exports if you need. You can do an export by selection. So let's say that I just needed to export one certain area. I can make that selection and then apply the filter to my selection. I'm going to go ahead and say no filter on this. There are some advanced settings if you want to really kind of dig in here. The defaults are usually the way to go, but if you want to make any changes, you can. And then once you're satisfied, you can go ahead and click OK. And that will create a DWG of whatever we have just created. So now if I go into my File Explorer here and pull open that DWG, I'm going to just do a drag and drop for this. There we go. So this is that DWG that we just created. Go ahead and show this on the 3D view. There we go. So there's that DWG that we just created. Okay. All right. There we are. Okay. Now there were a few questions, things that people wanted to see within the when everybody signed up, you were given the option to ask, if there's anything specific that you wanted to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up to a Q&A. I'm going to go over real quick the request that Corey had to talk about how we can save bay types and configurations within the bay editor, so that way you don't have to redo those every time. And then I'm going to check those questions, and I will answer those questions that were listed when people signed up. And if you were one of the people that asked those questions, I might ask you to expand a little bit, but we will absolutely get through them and see. And then I also did have another question and in an email, and I wanted to address that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our bay editor here. Okay. So I've got the different types of bays that are in my drawing currently. I've got this A1 and A2. And if I wanted to save these, I can save my bay types right here on the top right. Okay, I can click the save button. It's going to save in my CET documents. I've got bay editor folder. It's going to save as a .cmmhbay file. Okay, so a bay file. I can give it a name, something that makes sense. You're probably going to want to change the name of this because every time that you're using this and creating bays, you're going to get bay, A1, A2, A3, etc. And so you don't want to have a whole bunch of these A1s in there. So it's a great idea to adjust that. But what we can do is give it a name that makes sense. So if it's maybe some kind of description of a name, whatever makes sense for you, go ahead and name it. You can click save. And then next time that you need this same type of bay, you can click this load button, open up your CET documents, bay editor file, and then you can pull in that bay. So we'll see if this one's going to work. This is an older one, so I'm not sure if it's going to work for me. Here we go. So there's a bay that was already created. This was in essential palette racking, so I'm not going to really be able to apply this nicely into the Speedrack products because this was, this was the essentials extension instead of the Speedrack extension. But if I have already created something like this, I can set that up and reuse it again and again. So that way you don't have to reconfigure it every single time. If you've got stuff that you use frequently, you can save these bays and reuse them. Okay. All right. So we had some questions from the signups, and I believe that we answered a lot of them throughout class. Oh, let's see here. Looks like Corey's got one other question. How to hide the calculation preview? Yep. Yep, absolutely. So we talked about this a little bit when we talked about the control panel, but just a quick review. File menu will give you your control panel options. So when you open up your control panel, in the general section, you have this preview prices option. So again, this is great for if you're doing live design. You can turn that off and it will only show calculation here instead of actually showing the price. So that can be a really powerful thing to know about. Yep, exactly. Because no, that's okay. Yeah, it's a major one because it will it's showing you your main article view or whichever article view you have active, and it's showing just that list price, which can be a little bit scary when you are, you know, when you're trying to specify something. There's no discounting or anything. So save yourself from causing any heart attacks that way. Okay. All right. Okay, I believe that we covered most of the questions. There were requests to see an output to DWG, covered that. We got our exporting finalized layouts into presentable drawings. If that was you that requested that, please let me know if there was anything that I can expand on for that beyond what we already showed. There was a question about how to change things on existing drawings, the best way to kind of do that. I will say that if you have an existing drawing, like if you've got a CAD plan or something like that, it does need to be redrawn in CET. But once it's drawn in CET, it's pretty easy to adjust. So let's say that you sent this out and this was what you planned to install. And so this was your drawing. You can make changes to this and then save it as like an as-built drawing. You can also do this by adjusting the state of the drawing as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this new drawing here. We'll just say that this is our test drawing. Once the file has been saved, you can go to this file info area and you can actually set the state. So let's say that this was this is what we are shipping. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the state, click save. So now that is what the state of this drawing is. And then if I go to my file open from within CET and I look at a file, it will actually show me the status of that file. I do have to have my info button checked on here, and I'm only going to see this if I open from within CET. If I just use my regular Windows Explorer, Windows File Explorer, I'm not going to see this information. I have to do open from within CET. But when I select these, if I set a state, you'll see that I can see the state of that drawing. So then let's say that they went to do the install and something happened. And let's say that maybe they needed to shift this aisle for whatever reason. There was kind of a change last minute. Maybe they wanted it to be flush on the bottom, something like that. So your installers come back and they say, hey, actually, there was a change. So now we've changed this within CET. We can go ahead and save this maybe as a different file. We could do like a save as, and instead of just having the original, you could do as built, something like that. So now this is the as built drawing. But this only works if it's been drawn in CET already. So if you're working with files that have previously been drawn somewhere else, that can be a little bit tricky. You will need to redraw it in CET. Okay, there was a question about positioning items. So we did go over the position tool. Let me know if that was your request. If there was anything else beyond what we talked about. If I didn't cover maybe what you were thinking, if you were thinking about positioning in a different way. But we do have that position tool, and that position tool works really nicely. So if I'm in my group select mode, right? So I can select entire systems. I can actually position this entire system using my position tool. Okay. So let's say that I have a space that I need to work with. And let's say that I need to be, exactly in the corner here. Maybe this is my usable space for my racking. Maybe all my egress is already figured out beyond this. I can use that position tool to grab this entire system. Just going to use the corner there and position right into the corner. So that position tool can be really powerful. Okay. Okay, the other thing was in the we covered it a little bit. I know it gets a little bit swirly here, but in the Bay editor, I just wanted to show you one other thing. When you are working in the Bay editor, there are some things that you can do, but you do need to be in specific modes. So, for example, you need to be in the single select mode when you're working in the Bay editor, if you want to adjust things like beam elevations. Okay. Um, so let's pop into the Bay editor and let's say that I wanted to adjust this particular bay. All right, we'll spin around so we can see a little bit easier here. And right now I'm in group select mode. So if I try to select things, things are going to be a little bit kind of swirly for me. So I do want to be in single select mode to be able to select individual levels here. So maybe I want to remove that level. So I just selected it and pressed delete. And now I'm going to left click on this beam and I'm going to drag it. Okay. So I can manually adjust these. It shouldn't just disappear on me. There we go. But I can left click and drag them to adjust where those are located. But again, I'm only going to be able to do that if I'm in single select mode. So really important when you're working in that Bay editor, to be in the single select mode. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and just close without saving that. And let's see, we talked about saving or setting the aisle widths and uh let's see, also the frame. So we've got some frame tools available. So if you want to adjust your frames, you do have some frame tools available. We also have some frame configurations within the pre-configurator. Okay, so make sure that you're checking those out as you are creating your pre-configurations. Okay, so we are open to other questions now. If anybody has any other questions here. I did want to I don't yep, you're here. I was gonna say, Craig, I wanted to call you out and see um if you were able to see things in your 3D view, if you were able to get that sorted. Okay, that makes sense. It was just running in software mode instead of hybrid mode because it didn't have a powerful enough graphics card. Yep. Yep. All right. Well, like I said, there is that link in the participant guide. So when you're working with your IT team, hopefully you have somebody that you can work with and you're not having to just buy it yourself. There are all those hardware recommendations there, so it will guide you to let you know what you need to really look for when you get a new laptop. Bruce, uh, it worked in 16.0. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure why it would have worked in 16.0, but not in 16.5. Hmm, interesting.
We're pretty sure that was because he was using the beta 16,
Ah, that could be.
or at least that's what the devs mentioned.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and check out the Bay editor. So let's say that we make a change. I'm going to get rid of this other one from Essential Palette Wrecking. So right now we've got these two different Bay types. We've got this one with the level that's been removed, and let's go ahead and say that we're also removing the load on the floor, so we're pulling that up onto a bay. Now, because I'm making a change to a bay that is existing in my drawing already, okay, I've got these two bay types, A1 and A2. Um, because I've made this change, I can choose to save and apply to the existing, and that will apply it everywhere in my drawing where that A1 bay type already was. And the other way that we can do this is we can create a duplicate. Okay, so now I've got this A1 1. All right, so we can rename it to whatever. We'll go ahead and say this is going to be our example. And let's say that we make another change. Let's go ahead and add, let's see, what should we do here? Um, let's just make this a smaller bay type. Okay. So now when I click this apply to target, if I want to apply this to an individual, I can just click once and I've got my spread tool set to single, and that's going to change this individual bay. But if I choose to apply it to the entire system, now when I click, it's going to change that entire system to that new bay type. Okay. So you can replace existing bays with the new bay type as well. So let's go ahead and let's say that we want this A1 here. We'll go ahead and apply to target and we'll apply it to that entire system. There we go. So again, we're working in systems, so you won't be able to apply it to everything all at once if you have multiple systems in your drawing, right? But you will be able to apply it to the entire system all at once. Okay, so that's something that I would have you reach out to Speedrack with and see if there's something specific that is maybe happening that they can talk with the devs about if you have some kind of unexpected behavior like that. All right. Any other questions or anything else that anyone would like me to go over before we end our session? Now, I did mention earlier about that help grid, how that would be a good feature request right? I do want to talk to you guys about that really quick. If you have something that happens that is maybe an unexpected behavior, or you have something that you would love to see in CET, we do have this send feedback option. So you can go to help and then send feedback. Ooh, okay. So quick question here about Dematic's Maestro and can the tag categories be turned off? You can actually, um, um, I don't have Maestro, so I can't demonstrate, so I don't know 100% for sure. Typically, you can select a category and just delete it. You should be able to delete it. You will need to delete out your tags that exist within that category first, if there's any kind of tags. Um, your A1, 2, and 3 are defaults. Okay, so these ones are going to stay, but anything additional you should be able to remove. That's interesting. It's not letting me actually remove any of these tags or any of these categories. That is funky. I will say that. You should be able to just remove those. Um, you may want to just uh, condense them down. So you're not going to be able to turn them off per se. I was going to say you should be able to just delete them for the drawing, but it's not actually letting us delete categories right now. So I'm going to talk to our devs about that. But you should be able to just condense them down to kind of get them out of the way, and then you can create other categories from there that you should be able to work with. So this one's allowing me to delete, but the defaults, it's not allowing me to delete. Okay, so for this send feedback, when we get this, we can choose whether we want to report a bug or a feature request. So for this, I'm going to do a feature request. We can choose what kind of topic it's about. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be, we're going to do an other. And I can say, please make a help grid available in the drawing space. And I can click submit. And now that will be sent on to be reviewed and hopefully potentially considered for development and added into the program. All right, question. Can you lock the upright height so it does not change automatically when using the Bay editor or adjusting levels? I am not aware of a way to do that. Um, Corey, do you know if you have a way to do that within your extension?
No, the way that we built the bay editor is to auto adjust based on the unit loads
Yeah.
and how it's set up with the clear height between products and the beam level. But that is probably a good feature that we could add as far as like a simple checkbox to block upright height.
Yeah.
So I will definitely make a note of that. And like Destiny mentioned, we are starting a maintenance phase here in January. Um, so any and all feedback would be greatly appreciated. And hopefully we can get that taken care of in the next phase.
Yep. And I mean, brand new extensions, it's your guys' feedback that's really gonna help, so things that you run into, let let them know what you want to see, what you need, because a lot of times that will really, really help them to fine tune that extension to be the best product that it can be for you guys. All right. We're gonna do last call for questions. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this training. The recordings will be available in the Academy, so you can refer back to those at any time. You can also feel free to download that participant guide from the Academy as well, if you want to recall any of that in the future as your resources. There are some resources available at the very end of the participant guide. I'll go ahead and scroll down real quick here. There's a couple of resources pages. These are all clickable. So if there's anything that you want to jump to automatically, you can go ahead and click into those to help connect you to those different places, as well as a glossary and some keyboard shortcuts for reference. So thank you so much for attending and being wonderful students. And I look forward to seeing you in future trainings.
Thank you very much, Destiny.